In this video, we're going to explore a few key passages from the Old Testament text to establish on what basis the New Testament writers wrote about the coming Messiah. Who was this Jesus Christ, really? A mere physical descendant of King David who would free Israel from political oppression? A created being or archangel, as the Jehovah's Witnesses teach? Or the very Yahweh or Jehovah of the Old Testament scriptures? Okay, we're going to talk about the angel of the Lord in selected Old Testament passages. Now, I'm not trying to prove anything right now. What we'll do is we will, as we progress through these videos, we will, I hope, develop a better understanding for the angel of the Lord's relationship with Yahweh or Jehovah and his identity. Okay. The first passage we're going to do is in Exodus 3, and it's about Moses, who was tending the fields of Jethro, his father-in-law, which is in verse 1, which I skipped. We'll start reading it at verse 2 and ask some questions as we go through this. Okay, verse 2. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Okay, so what we see here in the first 4 verses is we start with the angel of the Lord who appears to Moses. And then in the verse 4, it switches to Yahweh or Jehovah, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in the Hebrew. And the Lord is also called God, okay? These kind of interchangeable terms, although this is more of his personal name, I would suppose. Okay, so the question that arises, how is it that in verse 2 we have the angel of the Lord in the bush, and then in verse 4 we have Jehovah himself? Did the angel of the Lord go back home a few seconds after he appeared to Moses in the bush? And then did God the Father replace him a few seconds later? Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, are two deities in the bush? I don't think so. There's nothing in the text that would state that. Okay, let's look at the Hebrew. And I'm not going to read this because my pronunciation's not that good in Hebrew, but this says, and the angel of the Lord, this is the word for angel of the Lord, Malach Adonai, Adonai being the Jewish way of saying Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, what we would say is Yahweh. Okay, and then down here we have Yahweh. Okay, and which is also called God, which is Elohim, which I pointed out up here in the English text. Okay, so that's just to let you know that the word Yahweh here is used, which is capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. What is interesting here is that we see a shift from the angel of the Lord to the Lord, and then to Elohim in verse 4. It doesn't make sense to state that the angel of the Lord and the Lord are different gods. Who is this God then who is talking to Moses? Furthermore, in what sense can the Lord be his own messenger or angel in verse 2? Okay, we're going to read a little bit more. Then he said, Do not come here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. He said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Okay, so here we see the angel of the Lord, who is also called Lord and also called God, identifying himself. Let's read that again. Then he said, Do not come here, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. He said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Now, all through the Old Testament, you'll see, and in passages we'll do on the future videos, that whenever someone came in the presence of God, they believed, and rightly so, that if they saw God, they would die. So Moses, seeing the angel of the Lord here, recognizes the fact that, well, while I looked upon God, I'll probably die. But what's the most important thing about this passage is the linkage between the angel of the Lord and the identity of the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Okay, so the major question that arises here is, how is it then that a mere angel or messenger could also be the God of the patriarchs as well? These questions will be further elucidated or cleared up on upcoming videos. So I hope that gives you food for thought.